All right. Hello to all my friends out there in YouTube land, Facebook land, and any land, the land of the home. What the land of the home? The home of the brave, the land of the free. There we go, getting it straight there. So again, we want to welcome you to another segment of Momentum, a stewardship idea. Thank you for enduring my logo there in the back. It's new, it's brand new, it's sparkling, it's span, it's just pow, to me, that's what it is. I want to get like little clinky things on it so I can glow a little bit. But again, my name is Curtis O. Robinson, Sr., the senior pastor of the Faith Church here in the great city of Oakland, California, more specific, Central East Oakland, California. And as always, I have my host with me. I call myself, watch this. I'm gonna tell you what I call myself. I'm gonna get this, Healy. You watch. You're gonna be proud of me. I call myself Salt. Salt's no good without pepper. Glad to have my man with me today, my host, Elder Jeffrey Healy from the Westminster Presbyterian Church. How are you doing today, Elder Healy?
Curtis, what a day. We're 1 week from celebrating an incredible holiday, and just thinking about how fortunate we are to have pretty much made it through this incredible year, and also more fortunate to be able to have had my Venn diagram of life overlap with yours and our host and our guest today, Dave Paddock. It's just so lucky.
Oh, that is great. So, since you went there already, why don't you introduce our guest for today's show?
Well, thank you very much. I've had the great fortune of knowing Dave Paddock since around, we could have met on July 8th, 1973. So well more than half of our lives together. Dave hailed from San Diego, California, actually all over the world. His father spent an incredible career in the Navy, was just one of the most amazing men I've ever seen. And I'll relay, Dave and I'll talk about when his chief of staff came over to the quarters one day. It was beautiful. So Dave and I have known each other that long. He was in 11th Company at the U.S. Naval Academy. My brother was a junior when Dave was a freshman. My brother sort of let me chill over at the 11th Company area, so I got to know Dave better from that, and we've been dear friends. I have. How should I say? Do you want to talk about pigs in space later, Dave?
That's a good one. I can tell you. I'm not sure everyone will enjoy it as much as you do.
Well, as long as you explain it.
Okay, I'll be real quick on that. When Dave Paddock's oldest child was this little, I was over at their house and she had just finished feeding. I was holding her up in the air, pigs in space, and she blurped right into my mouth.
Formula.
Oh, really? Oh man, you went for the baby baptism?
So Dave is just an incredible guy. We've been great friends for years and years and years. We've gone through thick and thin together. Dave Paddock used the Naval Academy as something to stand next to. There are people that stand behind something, stand in front of it. Dave Paddock has done an incredible job of being a servant leader in life. Okay. We're going to talk about some of the things he has done in the course of this. I know that's center to today's discussion. Last March, Dave came out with his wife Sue to visit their daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren in March. They were only here a day or so, and our governor put the shelter in place. So Dave jumped on an airplane and flew back to Virginia. And what happened, Dave?
Well, it was one of those things. I tried to be preventive and do all the right things, and I got on an airplane and came back to quarantine here in Virginia Beach, my home, and was doing it for a week. And my wife was coming. She stayed the week with the grandkids. And I said, so are you going to quarantine from me when you get home? And she goes, no. I said, well, why not? Because that means I've got to extend my week quarantine another 2 weeks. And bear in mind, this is now March 24th. I flew back on March 18th. And so she said, no, why? Because, and I, of course, she hadn't really quarantined because she'd been with the grandkids. So that evening, I was sharing a hot commodity with some friends because I had some extra toilet paper, and that was already in short order in Virginia Beach on March 24th. And I had friends, and they came over to pick it up. And I remember wiping it down with the wipes, the Clorox wipes, before I handed it to them and said, here you go. And scheduled to pick up my wife at about 10:30 that night. And this was about 5:30, 5:45. And at 6 o'clock, the headache from heck started.
The headache.
Headache from an HELL. That's
yeah.
what it was.
So how I mean, what differentiates this headache from others? I mean, we talk like migraine level.
It was migraine level. Migraine, just ocular, but this was a migraine level, but it was one that just wouldn't go away. And it was just, there was no understandable cause. I didn't feel like I had a sinus infection or anything. It just started out of the blue. And by the time I picked my wife up, I wasn't a nice person because I wasn't doing well. Called the doctor 2 days later because of the headache. And then the other thing that I just remembered, Curtis, and this is interesting because I'd forgotten all about it and it was just reminded reading new symptoms that are out there since then. And that was my left eyeball was hurting. And my daughter, who I was visiting, is a nurse at Stanford Hospital. And I called her and said, okay, I've got this headache. I've had it for, 2 days now. And my eyeball's hurting. What would that be? She called my doctor the next day. My doctor says, let's treat this as a sinus infection. Of course, you can't get into the doctor even then.
Yeah.
And just call me and keep me posted on everything. So she put me on an antibiotic, a strong antibiotic, and a prednisone. So
Prednisone.
Yeah. So I got those two things. And that was, I want to say March 26th. Over the weekend on Saturday, I started having some difficulty breathing. Now, I have asthma. That's why I knew I was a higher risk. And one of the things I learned when I had asthma was don't try to tough it out. And so consciously, I'm thinking that, but subconsciously, I'm going to tough it out. So I go through the weekend, and Sunday night, I tell my wife, that was the other thing that I did. I kept my wife apprised of how I was feeling, which was uncharacteristic normally, unless I stub my toe, and then the world knows. So on Monday, I tried to contact my doctor, reach out to her. On Tuesday, she got back to me and said, and I was progressively getting worse. And she said, we're going to assume you have the COVID. I'm going to put you on a Z-Pack and maybe go to the hospital. But the fear of going to the hospital was if you didn't have it, you don't want to go to the hospital and get it from someone else. So.
Right. Now, what's a Z-Pack?
A Z-Pack is erythromycin. It is a antibiotic, a different antibiotic. And those were at the time, again, this is the end of March. This was people were still trying to get a feel for what would help with this virus. So, and that was one of them. So she did that. And then we had the discussion of, do I go to the hospital or not? And if I did get worse, unquestionable, go to the ER. That was in the morning on March 31st that we had that conversation. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I couldn't even explain to my wife how I even put my CPAP on, much less have her assist me with it. She FaceTimed my daughter, who said, get to the ER immediately. I said, I'll go in the morning. She said, go now, Dad.
Okay.
And I can tell you how bad it was, and Jeff will appreciate this. Huh. The ride to the hospital, it was pouring rain here in Virginia Beach. I mean, it was like a Florida downpour. It was just unbelievable. And it's 11:45, almost midnight, and I don't make a single comment about my wife's driving. And that's when she knew I was bad.
Okay. Wow.
So I get to the ER and it's like a movie. It's like a TV show. It's like Dustin Hoffman and Outbreak or Grey's Anatomy or any of these doctor shows where it's got this tent over the front door. It's all enclosed with plastic. There are two doctors in complete what I call battle gear, but in their protective gear, and a police officer and a big sign that says, "Don't get out of the car." And I'm going, okay, it's pouring rain. Don't get out of the car. Well, what do I do? And finally rolled down the window and they said, "Go ahead, you can get out." And I remember being barely able to turn to my wife to say goodbye.
So why were you barely able to turn? What was going on then?
So besides the headache that had been there for a week, besides the eyeball hurting, it was, besides the breathing issue that I had, it was fatigue. And I never had a fever. So that was one of the things everyone said, "Oh, what's your temperature? What's your temperature?" Well, I never had a temperature. Maybe 99 it went up to. So that's not a huge temperature. So I got out of the car, and of course, when it's pouring rain, I say goodbye to my wife, and I walk in, and they don't check me in outside. They say, "Just go in." So because it was midnight. And so that was a benefit of going in that time of night. And I walked in and they're asking me all the questions. "Do you have a fever? Do you have this?" And I just said, "I've been to California." And that was when they said, "Okay." And then they put me straight into a room, isolated room, and then they started all their tests.
So they assumed you flew, right?
Yes.
They didn't just walk like, "Oh, come on, it's a COVID. It's like, let's walk. Let's not take the plane."
Well, the analytical in me when I came back
Virginia
early,
Beach.
I wanted to make sure I didn't have any stops, and you have to come into Virginia Beach. And so I had a flight that went through Denver that didn't change planes until you did. So, and then I even picked out a payday bar at the Denver airport because Sue wasn't with me, so I could buy what I wasn't supposed to buy as a snack. And I even took a wipe and wiped it off before I handed it, or held it to get it, and it wouldn't scan. And the woman reached for another one, and that's probably where I got it. But the payday bar.
The payday bar.
Hey, Dave, do you remember me calling you when you were in the hospital?
Yes, I do. I had a half a dozen people call me, and 3 of them were classmates, and the rest family.
Okay, that's cool, man.
And
it was good you were able to get through, Jeffrey.
I just remember you saying, "I have the worst headache of my life."
Yes. It took them 3 days in the hospital to get rid of it.
Wow. So I want to segue to just put a thumbnail right there.
I'm not getting good audio here.
You're not getting good audio? How about that? How about right now?
No, I am. No, I'm okay.
Okay. I want to put a thumbnail right there, David.
Okay.
Jeff, you called him. This is something that we don't talk about that much, right? So Jeffrey, you called him, right? This is your friend. All right. You guys go back. It's dirty water up in this relationship, right? But he's sick. Man, what's going on what's going on through you right now?
Well, Dave and I speak pretty regularly, not as often as you and I do, Curtis. Curtis and I probably talk 8 times a week.
Yeah, twice a day sometimes.
Dave and I talk, and what's fun with Dave is we'll finish a conversation with, "Hey, I got to call you right back," and hang up. In 3 weeks later, we pick up and we start right from there again. So we've been through so much that we can finish each other's conversations. But I don't know why. It's just one of those things. I got to call Dave. And there was something out in the cosmos that said, "I got to call Dave."
Yep.
And when he answered, it was just raspy. And I thought, come on, Dave, what's going on? That's cute. You're acting like you got the COVID. And he did.
Wow.
And it scared the stuff out of me.
Yeah, I think people need to realize, man, it's like a two-edged sword here. So David, so get back to that thumbnail. So go ahead.
Well, it's again, I'll echo what Jeff said. It was one of those things that through the cosmos, we connected again, and it was at a timing, and it was April Fool's Day that I had my COVID test, and I got put on oxygen. I sort of had to ask for it because they were hesitating, and then they were hesitating to admit me, and I sort of said, make a decision. I'm not, and I never was scared. Ironically, it's kind of funny, actually, in hindsight, but I never really was scared. I was really at peace. I was comfortable in my relationship with God and everything, and Jesus, and it was just comfortable in the sense of that wasn't my fear of dying or anything. It was just, I'm going to fight this and I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to do, and I don't have the tools to do it. So these people have the tools. And if I don't ask for it, I may or may not get it. And that's a message I want to tell people is you have to speak up for yourself. And if you can't for yourself, make sure you have someone that can for you, whether it's a spouse, a significant other, a family member, or a friend who can be there to speak for you if you're not capable of doing it. Because
hey, Dave, did any of the caregivers subsequently reveal to you about how bad it was?
My doctor, when I just saw her 3 weeks ago, and she said it earlier this summer, because I keep saying, I don't think I had it that bad. And she just pauses and looks at me and goes, oh, yes, you did. And the reason that I don't think I had it that bad is because I know it could have been worse. Mm-hmm. And so I'm to this day will say I don't have it that bad. I didn't have it that bad, even though it was. So it is a wicked disease. And so I got my COVID swab test 2:00 in the morning on the 1st of April. I had some phone calls, could barely talk. I did have the phone, thank goodness for that. But I'm in an isolation ward at 5 a.m. At 5 minutes to 5, I got put into a room in the isolation ward at Centerally Hospital in the area. And there were 8 other COVID patients in there at the time, I found out. It went up to 18 and down to 8 while I was there for 6 days. At 6 o'clock, approximately, the doctor called me on the phone in the room and informed me that I was positive for COVID. And I remember tearing up a bit because it was emotional in the sense of, at least I know what I have. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we can do something about it. Now we can attack the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate, Curtis, because my brother is a ENT, otolaryngologist in upstate New York, and he was concerned. So he was contacting the infectious disease doctor that was taking care of me. And I'd like to think it was because I was his brother and he loved me, but I'm pretty sure he just wants my plasma. And so he just wanted to make sure I was alive to give plasma for him. So that's just my aside. But
hey, I'm going to steal this. I'm going to steal this for a second. Dave, did you ever think you weren't in control? And do you have any good stories about being in control?
One can never be accused of losing control if one has never possessed it.
Where'd that come from?
January 20th,
Tell the story.
1980. Well, as always, we digress.
No, it sounds, you know what it sounds like on this vein, like what Margaret behind me, that's the rap group Salt and Pepper.
Salt and Pepper right there.
Right. So Pepper is with the bun, that's you, Jeff, and Salt is the other girl. That's me. The one in the middle was Spinderella. That's the DJ. But let's get back to Dave here, right? So, Dave, and you bring some good questions up, Jeff, right? You know what was going on. I mean, you were there for like 6 days.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so was there any day that was just worse than any of the others?
No, the first day, the notification, I texted my brother and said, should I be scared? And he said, no, concerned. And then I knew I should have been scared, whatever. Because for him to say concerned, that means it was scary. But I never got scared in that sense of the disease because I was immediately put on hydroxychloroquine. And if I was either the first or one of the first, in the Hampton Roads area to get the hydroxychloroquine. And I still had the headache, and so that continued on, but at least I got that right away. And the breathing, I was on oxygen, 2 liters of oxygen. So they caught me in time, is my point.
Okay.
They got me in time. And that's the thing that I hear from other people, other survivors, is why were you worse or whatever? It was because they waited too long. So that's where I tell people that if you don't have a doctor and you're able to get one, at least get to a doctor that you can talk to, communicate, know yourself and know them, and have someone that you can go to so you can track yourself. And if need be, like my daughter said, go to the hospital now. But one of the tough times though was my brother was sending me stuff. He had a classmate from Wesleyan that was a renowned pulmonologist in New York City who got the COVID earlier before me, and who went into that storm, the immune system storm. So your immune system is just fighting, and so the hydroxychloroquine and some other stuff didn't work. And that's arthritis drug that my brother coordinated with the hospital to make sure that if the hydroxychloroquine did not work and the Z-Pak, then I would go on this, at the time, this other drug. So we had plan B on standby and ready and available for me. And of course, okay. I did not want to go on that respirator. That was the fighting that I had. About 2 days in, one of the nurses, and it's my personality anyway. I get to know the staff wherever I am, whether it's a waitress, whether it's a cashier, person behind the counter serving, something, I get to know people as when we're interacting. This was tough because you couldn't see these people because they're behind their shields and their masks and all that. And then one day I just, I was going just hour to hour, and every morning at 4:00, they stick their needles in you and stuff, and they don't always work because my veins roll away and stuff. But so this nurse comes in and Curtis, she squeezes my hand. Yeah. She squeezes it. And my first reaction was, oh my gosh, should she be doing that because I have COVID? That was my first fleeting through my mind. And then it was, oh my gosh, she's reaching out because she sees a person that's hurting, hasn't had human contact in 3 days, and needs something. And then it was, I squeezed back because then it was the human to human touch. And that's what concerns me about those that aren't as fortunate to have that human to human touch. And then they finally got rid of the headache with some other meds 3 days into it. And one night a nurse comes in and she asked me if she can pray over me. And I don't think I hesitated very long and said thank you as she prayed over me. Okay. And I'll get teary-eyed because it was emotional. Yeah. And I was fortunate to have her another night, and she asked again. She asked permission each time. But it was one of those times that I knew I was getting out of there at that point. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Man, talk about your faith. I think this is a segue, man, to talk about, what has your theology or your perspective on your faith, how has it changed, since, your COVID experience? It hasn't changed. Okay. I mentioned that headache that I had for the week. Mm-hmm. I wasn't the most pleasant person to be around. There is a name my wife term that she would use probably during that time frame. As I was that March 31st, as I was getting worse and worse and worse, I made the mistake of texting my daughter the words, "I'm ready to go." It's not what I meant, but at the time, that was what I was trying to convey was I'm at peace with my faith and my beliefs and that if it is my time, I didn't believe it was, but if it was, to let my daughter know that I'm okay. It didn't come across that way.
Okay.
It was not well received.
I can imagine.
And I had a FaceTime within nanoseconds yelling at me. And I said, that's not what I meant.
Okay. Okay.
But so I did have faith, and I had classmates and friends that were praying for me all over the world. There was a prayer circle around. I had one, Jeff knows, my company mate, Hank Donegan, has on a prayer list with 4,000 some people. And the word went out around the world. And I had other people that were just casual friends that were reaching out and saying they were praying. So so did it change me? It reinforced what I already believed.
Okay.
And I'm thankful. And for those that have a questioning of their faith, as everyone does in time, I guess, over time, is that I will say that it was unwavering for me. And the only fear that I could say I had was the fear of getting out of the hospital too soon and having to come back.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And that, so, but I'm thankful. I wish I could, I said I was going to thank everyone individually. The best intentions, I never thanked them. So I just, did the group thank you on the Facebook post and the individual emails that I had. And those that were able to get through and talk to me on that. And so here's another, as I said, I didn't have it that badly. I said I had calls from several classmates, of course, Jeff being first and stuff, I had a classmate from my company, 11th company, Jim Kelly, who we find out this summer in August that the day he called me to check on me, where I could barely talk, he was diagnosed with throat cancer.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And he didn't tell anybody. And, he was the Irish stubborn and got through that. But for me, I firmly believe that my reaching out and the people and having the faith and the praying have made the difference.
That's great. That's great. And, and the reason I asked that is, and I'm sure you are a man of faith, many times in the biblical narrative, right? I think that we're talking about a meeting of God moment, right? And I think that happens in our lives where we have a meeting of God moment. We see it with all the great patriarchs, matriarchs in the Bible, where they have these moments where they meet. Isaac meets the angel. They wrestle at the river Jabbok, right? And Isaac has a transformative experience. What do you think about faith, Jeffrey, in terms of how it should play in where we are right now as a people and as we face this war against this virus?
Curtis, thanks for asking. I think that these trials and tribulations, what they do is they thin the space between us and God, and we get to that thin space where we can experience God more easily because of our vulnerability. That we don't have this big human wall up of, it's me, I can make it through. We get to that point where we're going, God, thanks for being here with me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to steal this for just a second, because Dave, I see behind you 11th Company, which I love, but next to that is Run to Honor of Fallen USNA Heroes. Curtis, a couple months ago, Dave was out here, and I got to meet him over at the Buena Vista. One of us had the Irish coffee, won't say which, but Dave, we met with a fellow. Would you mind telling us a little about Run to Honor and why that's something you've dedicated yourself to?
Run to Honor was introduced to me in about a little over 10 years ago. And it was formed initially from a group from the class of 1995 from the Naval Academy who lost classmates in the war in the Middle East. And we have lost classmates over time. We lost 2 in Beirut in 1983. And that had an impact on me. The first one was October 16th, 1983, Mike Oler. who was shot by a sniper, a Marine captain. And I remember seeing his wife, Gail, on McNeil Lair Report and seeing the strength that she had. And I said, you know, she's a very strong faith woman. And then a week later, the bombing in Beirut took our classmate Jim Search and my dear friend who was in Glee Club and choir with me, Vinnie Smith from class of 1976. So that was in my core already. And then when I was introduced to Run to Honor, I said, this is neat. And I don't run anymore. I was a hurdler, and that's how I got into school, but
really?
I don't run marathons. I walk 10Ks, and anybody can walk a 10K. And I say this because as I was doing my 10K one year, I was walking with a woman 5 months pregnant and daughter. And as I'm walking and I'm overheated and struggling and stuff, I have someone who passes me with a boot on their foot because they had a broken foot. So someone with a broken foot can walk. And I had someone go by with a prosthesis, and I'm going, if someone without a foot can go by. And I didn't feel badly. I said, I'm doing the best I can. But when the woman with a cane, white cane, walked by me, that's when I felt I better pick it up a little bit and I can do a little bit better. My point being, anybody can walk the 10K, and the Marine Corps Marathon, the People's Marathon, is a great thing. So at the end of the marathon, a friend from 95 came up and said, come on, we got to go down. And it was muddy that year, as it has been recently. And I walked down to the finish line, and she goes, we got to go down for the Penguin Award. And I go, what's this? Megan McClung, class of 1995, Marine Major, Public Affairs Officer, used to support the Marine Corps Marathon and Run to Honor over in the Middle East, and created a Marine Corps Marathon Forward. And to encourage people to attend and to participate, she gave a penguin to the last place finisher. She had just done a VIP tour with a helicopter when she was killed. She's the first female Naval Academy graduate killed.
Wow.
At the finish line that year was her brother and her father has since passed away, Mike. And so the person I had breakfast with at the Buena Vista with Jeff was Mike McClung, Megan's brother. And he, every year since, has presented the penguin to the last place finisher at the Marine Corps Marathon, with the exception, of course, this year, or we couldn't do that.
Yeah. And
he did his first marathon walking as a virtual one in California. He's in the valley and stuff. So Mike is one of those dynamic individuals that is on multiple volunteer boards. I've recruited him for Run to Honor. And so I've been a volunteer for Run to Honor in this past year, which haven't done much at this point because of the COVID, but I'm now the president of Run to Honor. And one thing that I'd like to share with your listeners and viewers and to the world actually is one of our board members, Pat McConnell from class of 2002. And that's how we talk, by the way, is we all associate with year groups. So that's just how we think, and that's our core. But he created a virtual memorial hall. We have at the Naval Academy, we have Memorial Hall. And if anybody's fortunate enough or wants to put on their bucket list, go to Annapolis and tour the United States Naval Academy. You want to see history, you want to see pride, and you can see a noon meal formation. It's absolutely awesome. But inside Bancroft Hall is Memorial Hall. And Bancroft Hall is the largest dorm in the world with over 4,000 students housed in it. Largest dormitory in the world. But Memorial Hall is where we honor our fallen. And we have under the Don't Give Up the Ship flag from Captain Lawrence in the War of 1812 is the list of those killed in action. And on the walls, etched in stone, are those that were killed in training or operational losses on that. There are over 2,700 names in that hall. That is now online at usnamemorialhall.org, where people can go in and see from original graduation from the Naval Academy, those that have been killed over time. And we have anecdotal stories, and it's for the families. And that's what Run to Honor does. We honor the families.
That is fantastic. Yeah.
So, and recognize.
So Curtis, Curtis, on Memorial Day 2001, just a few months before 9/11, Dave and I had been talking, and I called the academy, asked if I could get a list of our classmates that had died wearing the uniform, and stood up at church that morning and called on the other members in the congregation to mention those that they knew that had worn the uniform and had died in uniform. Dave and I have taken that on as something we try to do every year, is remind people of our connection to the military, to all those that have given that sacrifice. We are two of the worst guys you want to say, hey, thanks for your service on Memorial Day. Tell us that on Veterans Day. Don't tell us that on Memorial Day.
Yeah. Let's have a discussion about veterans. This is 2 weeks in a row we've had this Navy discussion, right? Last week we had Brother Phil Dillard, class of what, Jeffrey? For
90-something.
94?
90-something.
90-something.
94.
I hope you're listening, Phil. they're trying to throw shade on you. Hey, look, but we had a great discussion, man, about military life, the empire, the world, and military relationships with civilians. And so we have this general, David, that is the new chief of staff. Am I correct? Brother Healy?
He will be the Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Defense. All right. Sorry. Thank you for the correction. The Secretary of Defense. Not F-E-N-C-E, but defense, defense. Right. And so there's like a civilian conversation that cropped up last week. Right. So Brother David, give us what are your insights on that? How do you feel about this new Secretary of Defense?
I am very, very excited about the fact that we have the ability to have a transition of government, even though it's disputed in some circles and that. But I'm excited that we can select and pick people on that. There is another side from some people, and I'd like to look at both sides of the equation without saying which side I'm on, but I like to look at both sides. And that is the civilian side of the government is one where we keep our military separate from the civilian side, and the military is subordinate to the civilian side. And to me, that is so important to maintain that. And just as a note, I have a BS in American political systems. So, some people would say it's a Bachelor of Science. Some people will say it's just BS. but
I get it.
So in that sense, there is the fact that he wasn't, the Secretary of Defense is not a civilian, but he was a general officer. There will be some people that will say, is that a good or bad thing? And I'm not judging on either side. That's just word that could be out there on that. So it's that's one option. I mean, but that's, we also have, letters that were written here recently by a group of admirals and generals that was written on that. And there's two sides to that one that come out of saying it used to be that generals and that don't get involved in the politics per se, on a group basis. It's one thing on an individual, but as a group basis, that's we had a thing at the Naval Academy that when you get, what was it, 6, 7 mids in a room, it's the mutiny. And that's where, things, we did it in a joking way, but there's some, in every pound of sarcasm is an ounce of truth. So that's and so that was one of the things that catches my attention. And I'm always one to play devil's advocate and take a look at, what are the pros and what are the cons. So it's that's, I guess, in a nutshell, how I've seen. I've been so busy in other things.
I was talking with a fellow this week who's a flag officer, an admiral, and asked him his thoughts about our soon-to-be retiring Secretary of Defense. Or no, the guy that was the secretary earlier, and he said that that a lot of what ends up happening in the Defense Department, as different from transportation, Treasury, commerce, etc., is that because of the magnitude for disaster, national disaster, if you had somebody in the military try to take over, that's why this is a critical difference in our nation, that the military not be in charge of the military, that we report to the civilians. Others, it can have a short-term impact, long-term impact if the military is running the military. We report to the civilians.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because if you might ask that question to civilians, that they may see it the opposite. Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
The typical civilian, when you hit me up with that, I had to switch philosophy, David, when Healy began to talk to me about that, because I could not see that, right? And the reason I say I could not see that is because when I look at like police forces across America, okay, they are made up of a lot of ex-military people, right? And so, and then we know the problem that we have with policing in America. We want to be real clear, right? This has been a very tumultuous year for policing in America. And it's been a tumultuous year for Black men and policing in America. So when he hit me with that, I had to really shift philosophically, because philosophically it makes sense. Mm-hmm. All right. But practically, I think it may be not a distant reality. For instance, I asked a question. I said, well, Jeff, to me, as well as yourself, David, you guys exemplify, clear military character, right? You went to the Naval Academy, right? You got educated, right? You got processed, you graduated, you continued to expand upon that construct that you learned while attending school at the Naval Academy, right? You even went out, into other areas of the socio-economic construct and began to build, right? But I mentioned, I went to Richmond High School, Richmond, California. Richmond is a very Black and brown community, but I just don't remember seeing any recruiters from the Naval Academy on campus. However, I saw a lot of Army, Marine, Navy, Air Force recruiters. Would have loved to have seen, I'm not saying that, I don't want to get in trouble here. I'm not saying that, a recruiter is not a high quality situation, right? However, when you start reaching, I think the Naval Academy, if you had said to me, Curtis, you got two choices. Yes, sir. You either go to the Navy or the Naval Academy. Which would you choose? I would be like the Naval Academy, because I knew long term it would be more. What are your thoughts on that?
You've several things that you've mentioned there are key points, and I wrote down the recruiting part of it because, of course, that gets my attention right away and on it. But it's a never-ending challenge. The ability to get good people in any position, and specifically on the recruiters on that, and to get out there and for some people don't have any. You're not in a Navy town, you're not going to see, you don't even see it. the only Navy that the civilians have seen was Top Gun initially on it until Tom Hanks produced Greyhound, which I just watched the other day. And as a ship driver, which I was and Jeff was, that was a good movie. My wife said it was repetitive and boring, but for me, it was like, okay, 3 degrees angle on the rudder. I get that and stuff. But
check that out.
But the challenge is to get out there and it never ends and here in Hampton Roads we do it, but I'm at the national level. I'm on the board of trustees for the Naval Academy, and we do have a nominating committee and an admissions committee. And our classmate Ples Bruce was integral to that admissions committee. He was from Atlanta, Georgia. We were roommates plebe summer, and so it was Ples Bruce and Ollie Reed and I were roommates on that July date in 1973. For the hardest part of plebe summer. And unfortunately, last June, I had to speak at his funeral. And other than my dad and my mom, I hadn't spoken at a funeral before. So this was emotional. So and it's emotional now, excuse me, on it. Yeah. And one of the things that I remember very talking with Ples and Ronnie Rogers, who was a trustee at the time, and Ronnie is of Asian descent, and Ples is Black, and we had the discussion on race from our perspective and their perspective, and it was just an evening discussion, and it was fascinating. So today, Curtis, this is very strong, and it's still raw with me, is that in this year of turmoil and stuff and the issues and challenges that we've had, there are many times, including right now, is that I would love to have Ples Bruce on this call and joining us in this joining this discussion.
Yeah.
Because we've had those discussions long before it became as big an issue as it has been this past year and stuff. So but the recruiting it's in the outreach is a challenge for the Navy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to take your message back up.
Thanks.
The current admissions and say, and specifically mention to say, hey, but it's one of these typical never ending. How do you get those in? My son did not get into the Naval Academy. It was devastating in the sense that, why not? He went to Tulane, a bar with a $40,000 a year cover charge. So, it wasn't that he wasn't. It wasn't.
That was classic.
So it's not that he couldn't have, but, again, it did, it's one of those things. It's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. I was going to leave every year until I couldn't. It was one of those, I hate this place. I hate this place. I hate this place. Now it's, I love this place. I love this place. I love this place. But
yeah, it happens.
It's
a couple little factors that I think influence. One thing that I love about the conversations that Curtis, Dave, and I have regularly is that we are all willing to shine that light on our blind spots. They are blind spots. We don't know about them. And it's wonderful to be able to have a conversation, a civil conversation, where these blind spots are revealed, discovered, challenged, and then incorporated. A couple things that come to mind. In World War II, each congressperson, senator, and congressman, because then it was almost all men, probably was all men, could have four people at West Point and Navy at any one time. So they pretty much had one would graduate, they bring another one in. That was increased to 5 about halfway through World War II, because we needed to have more naval officers and more Army officers. So what happens now is each congressman, each senator, congressperson, each senator has 5 people that they have at the academy at any one time. It often runs where you might have 2 freshmen, 1 sophomore, 1 junior, 1 senior. There's a turnover rate within the academy due to a number of reasons, but they pretty much are going to bring in 1 or 2 a year. So it's a lot of it has to do with how active is that congressperson in promoting that opportunity just one small part. The Naval Academy, and Dave, you're going to have access to better numbers than I do on this. I believe that the acceptance rate at the Naval Academy is less than 10% of those that apply, which is good. But the thing that really amazes me is what's called yield, and that is the percentage of people that are offered a spot, the percentage of those that do attend. I think that most people think that it's Harvard and Brigham Young are the top two. From what I understand, the Naval Academy is higher than both of those, insofar as if you're offered an appointment, about 8 out of 10 go. So are those numbers still good, Dave?
Yes, they're within yes, they are.
Mm-hmm. So this is what I like to say, Jeffrey, because I know you're a man of honor as well as you, David. Jeffrey, you need to come to East Oakland. I need to introduce you to these high school principals at Castlemont and at Oakland Tech and at Oakland High, right? Where it's very clear that the student body is Black and brown, right? So I'm looking at some stats right now. And right now it looks like about maybe 7 to 8% of undergraduate students at the Naval Academy are Black or African-American, 11% are Hispanic, 64% basically are white. Right. And the reason I say that, David, is this. If they had told me that I was Harvard material early in life, right, I would have gone. All right. It took me to submit an application to Harvard University at the age of 57, right, in a resident fellows program for them to go like, oh, yeah, come on, good grades, blah, blah, blah. Love your essays. He wrote a scathing review for me. By the way, thank you, Jeffrey. So if they're mad, I say like that guy right there, y'all listen to the letter that he wrote on my behalf. Then, a couple of other letters, right? And then I get this acceptance letter from Harvard University. Welcome aboard, come on in, right? And I know that Harvard is like they only, accept, that 7%, of all applications of any kind that come on that campus. So I say it like this. There's probably some diamonds in the rough.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Right? But you got to go dig for it.
Yes, you do.
And Jeffrey, that's your assignment. Another one.
Well,
that's another assignment.
One of the things that
I'll help you.
They have at the Academy is called Operation Info. And of course, it didn't happen this Thanksgiving because of the quarantine. But Operation Info is where people from the Academy, their youngest a year, Thanksgiving, and go home and then go out to schools. So they have these students go to the schools, not the grads like Jeff and me or as Pless did when he was here. And so that's something that identifying those schools that need to go to, Jeff, could be a good, when the next year, because I'm going to be positive and assume that we're going to have Operation Info next year.
Yes.
And go out there. And the other is the Alumni Association. We have chapters around the country, and that's something to coordinate to make sure. And we have what's called blue and gold officers, and that's to find out who the blue and gold officer is assigned to that for that region. Region, and contact them, and then bring in somebody. Can you imagine Charlie Bolton, Jeff, coming into those schools? Now, I don't know if you know. Curtis, if you know who Charlie Bolton is.
No, who is Charlie Bolton?
Well,
Hi, Charlie.
First off, you got to know his year because that's him. That's how we talk.
So what's his year?
He's class of 68.
Oh, okay.
And he was the head of NASA.
Ah.
So there you go. And he's a guy that would be somebody that if you could tag him to bring in, or someone to or even his son is again bringing in somebody that someone will say, wow. Because as you said, it's when you're young, if someone tells you can do something. Of course, there are some of us that are of the nature that if you tell us what we can't do, but tell me the rules I have to follow, I'll get there.
Yeah.
I can't do that, but these are the rules. Oh, I'll do that.
Yeah, I see it right here.
Charlie Bolden.
Charles Bolden.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're gonna make the call, man. Listen, we'll talk to anybody.
There you go.
Because we got it like
hey,
that.
I gotta tell you one story. We're a group of us in San Diego, in Coronado. The Navy has this great thing called boats, and a group of us on dates or with somebody that was more significant other, we all decided to go out on a little on a sailing cruise one Saturday, and you know, Navy men are men.
I'm about to say,
So,
44-foot lunar yawl. It's a wooden sailboat.
okay, but
Wow.
so we pulled this sailboat up to a restaurant in San Diego, and Dave, what happened?
Well, it was on Shelter Island, and we went to the Valley High or whatever it was, and there was a few rum drinks that were consumed.
a few? Okay.
A few. And we go back to our 44-foot lunar yawl, and no one is really assigned as a duty of, you know, usually you have a sailboat. If it's yours, you're the captain, and everyone else is, you have a first mate, and everyone else is, again, you have a defined chain of command. That's how we operate. Well, we didn't this day. And here's this multi-million-dollar yacht on the dock ahead of us, and everyone of us knows how to sail, and each one of us is doing it, but no one is assumed the command. And someone said cast off, and we all did.
Pray tell.
And we did not hit that multi-million-dollar boat, but
pray tell. You live
that moment was one of those we all look around at each other like, uh-oh. I hope no one's watching.
Wow.
Went to the Coast Guard Academy.
Well, they're watching now.
Oh.
It's like, ooh. Man, this has been a great discussion. We got a couple of minutes left, you know, and I just thank God that I didn't go to college with Healy, because I don't know what would have happened, man. It would have been just like, well, he's older than me, so I guess that throws that out the window. But I could imagine, bro, because I work with the dude, right? It's like that was an adventure in itself, right? Corporate America working with Jeffrey Healy. So Pat, give us some closing remarks. Healy, give us some closing remarks, and we're gonna try to get in contact with Mr. Bolden here, Charlie Bolden.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, the main topic that Jeff had asked me to sit in on this call was the COVID, and my message to everyone is, it's nice to be on the other side of it. Please don't treat those that get it as being irresponsible. It's a virus. Everyone's going to get it. How they got it, it's not necessarily because they were being irresponsible. They just got it. Mm-hmm. Know that the statistics are there that most people will get through okay with limited symptoms, but you are capable of getting it in a bad way. And in that case, contact a doctor, be in touch with a doctor, discuss hydroxychloroquine. I'm not forcing it. I'm saying discuss it with it. I would do it again on it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a strong faith, start working on it, because that'll, I believe in that.
That's a good one right there, my brother. Well, man, we appreciate it. And we appreciate you being courageous with the hydroxychloroquine. I think the problem behind that was that the president of the United States was also touting it, which meant that you cannot trust what comes out of his mouth. But thank God we trust you, and we trust your judgment on it. So thank you so much for being with us. Healy?
Just a couple quick thoughts here. You know, we're 1 week from Christmas. I was just thinking about, you know, 2020, the year of struggle that it's been, the year of turmoil. Back when I used to go to the office, I still work, but I used to go to the office. You know, I've been working for 40 plus years, and started thinking about the commute time that I have spent. I would often probably more say wasted than spent over this time. And it's likely about 45 minutes each way. It's been my average commute, so an hour and a half. That's a good 10% of a workday. So of my 40 plus years in work, I wasted 4 years of it commuting. This year, I haven't had that drain on me. And what it's done for me this year, Curtis and Dave, is it's allowed me to have deeper conversations. It's allowed me to really get to know people better, get to know things better, look at another 2 or 3 perspectives on a problem. So when a situation arises, you can be a victim of the circumstances, or you can use it as an opportunity. I choose the latter.
Amen, my brother. And that's it for today on Momentum, a Stewardship Idea. Knowing that this idea was born out of a crisis. And I tell you, I agree with Jeff. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Thank you so much, Brother Paddock, for being on with us today. And again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you on behalf of Jeff Healy, myself, and all others. Stay safe, wear your mask, social distance, play some tennis with Jeff.
Peace.
Have a great one. We love you guys. Have a great one.
Thanks, Salt and Pepper. Take care.
Thank you.